Hi guys, so for our adapted toy project, Lauren, Carson, and I decided to use a standard deck of cards and adapt it with these gem adhesives, which you can see pictured here. And the total price for both of these items is only $5.58, so it is fairly cheap. As far as our product description, so a deck of cards can be used for many different games, and most of these games are going to require the individual players to recognize and understand the information that is displayed on the card, and that's going to require them to use visual skills, and that will allow them to be able to play whatever game independently. There are several conditions, though, that would affect an individual's vision, which would hinder their ability to play a card game without any assistance. So to adapt a deck of cards, we can apply the sticky gems to the card with the number on the card in the upper left-hand side in Braille, and then the first letter of the suit of the card also in Braille in the upper right side of the card. And so by doing this, this will allow an individual with a visual deficit to be able to read the information that's on the card using tactile input, and that will allow them to play the game independently.
So not only can cards be adapted with these sticky gems or textured materials, but there's also a range of other toys and games that can be adapted using the adaptation we chose for this project. And so specifically jigsaw puzzles with a wooden or cardboard background frame could be utilized. So individual pieces and the frame can be coated with certain shapes and patterns in this raised adhesive material. And this can help individuals with vision deficits be able to still put a puzzle together just by feeling the shapes and matching the shapes rather than looking at the visual picture and matching the colors and the objects in the visual picture. Xbox and other gaming controllers is also another item that could be adapted. We know playing Xbox is super popular, and we can imagine that that would make individuals feel left out if they couldn't play these games. And so if you could adapt the buttons or joysticks with gem adhesives or other textured materials, they may be more likely to engage in that game, while also using kind of the auditory input from the game to be able to figure out what they're doing without being able to visually look at it. And then Connect 4 is also another game that could easily be coded, and so you could have the yellow pieces be coated with one sticky gem and the red pieces be coated with two sticky gems, and that could allow individuals to play Connect 4 without actually being able to see the colors. And that would actually add a challenging concept to it too. You know, I thought about what would it be like if I tried to play these games without my vision, and although it may be harder and take longer, I think it could add a fun component of it to having to use that proprioceptive input to be able to feel what you're doing, to be able to complete a game or complete a puzzle.
Okay, so Maggie and Carson have already talked about what our adaptive toy is and how we would go about making that, some different modifications that can be done, some alternate toys that could be adapted the same way, and how that's a pretty simple thing to do. So I want to talk about the diagnoses that might benefit. So obviously we're using Braille and tactile input as a means for the toy to be adapted. And the main diagnoses that are going to benefit from this adaptive toy are going to be those that are blind and visually impaired. So that can range all the way from low vision to legally blind. And the blind and visually impaired is what the American Foundation for the Blind terms this group of diagnoses. So we also wanted to break it down into to give you some specific diagnoses that might fall under an infant or child in that age range, and also for adult. So I'll quickly go over the adult ones. We are a little more familiar with these just because we've learned these in class. So we know diabetic retinopathy affects the retina, and it can cause blurriness in dark areas of vision, and over time blindness can occur. Cataracts, we know, are that cloudy and fuzzy areas of vision, in vision. Macular degeneration is a disease of the eye that causes vision loss in the center field of vision. And then glaucoma, we know, affects the optic nerve, and it's a rise in pressure in the eye. And it's also the leading cause of blindness in individuals over the age of 60. So those we're a little more familiar with. And then as far as the infant and child-specific diagnoses, a retinoblastoma is a malignant tumor that usually appears in the first 3 years of a child's life. And the affected eye or eyes, it can be in one or both, they would typically have vision loss, and there would be a whiteness in their pupils. Infantile cataracts is similar to cataracts in older adults, but it can occur in newborns. So it's still that clouding of the eye's lens that can affect vision. Congenital glaucoma, it's rare in infants, but it can be inherited, and it's the same thing. It's from high pressure in the eye, but it's due to an incorrect or incomplete development of eye drainage canals before birth. And it can be treated, but it can also cause vision loss. And then the last one, genetic and metabolic diseases of the eye. These are inherited disorders that make a child more likely to develop other diagnoses like retinoblastomas or cataracts. And these types of diseases may require the kids to have eye exams more frequently at an early age and regular screening to make sure that vision loss isn't decreasing. So that's an overview of the diagnoses. As far as performance skills impacted, the main ones we pulled from the OTPF under motor skills were that manipulation and coordination. So obviously if there's a loss of vision there, then there's going to be increased difficulty when manipulating or objects or coordinating movements to do really about anything. And that's the benefit of the Braille, because it gives that tactile input and that tactile stimulation to the fingers. And then process skills, and I'm sure there are more, but the main ones we pulled from the OTPF were difficulty with attending and choosing, handling, which is similar to manipulation, inquiring and searching, and even navigating. So those that have vision loss really have to rely on their tactile senses and other senses to be able to participate in different activities. So the benefit of our toy and the adaptation to our toy, or to the cards and the various games that Carson touched on, is these adhesive gems enhance this tactile stimulation. And that's just an overview of the diagnoses and what performance skills are impacted and how our toy and our adaptation can be of benefit to them.